Hello and welcome to the newest episode of Avenicast, the First Job podcast. Excited to be here today with Olivia Brandt from Willis Towers Watson. See, I did it, Willis Towers Watson. I had to make sure. Olivia is a pharmacist consultant who has worked a couple different places and was a soccer player in college and has an interesting story here. So, Olivia, say hello to the people.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm excited to kind of chat and hopefully maybe help somebody just learning about my particular career path.
Awesome. So I guess, before we learn about how you got to where you are, do you want to maybe take a minute and just kind of explain what is a pharmacist consultant? What do you do? How do you occupy your days?
I am still explaining it to myself, so I will do my best. So I'm a pharmacist by background, went to pharmacy school. I got to consulting by way of kind of just getting interested in like the insurance industry and health benefits. So basically what I do in my consulting space is I help employer clients of various sizes with their benefits overall, but mainly around their pharmacy benefits. So if you work for an employer and you get your pharmacy benefits through your employer, whether it's like a CVS or Express Scripts, I help manage that relationship for clients, for employers, and I help them with decisions around kind of what programs you may have or they may have for their employees.
Oh, cool. It's one of those things that I think not a lot of employees think about, the connections that have to happen and the management of all those things, but very, very important thing, very important piece. I'm curious, has, living in this sort of still in, I think we think of it as post-COVID. I don't know that we're really post-COVID yet. What's changed about that whole relationship? I imagine in some ways there's been, in more intense discussions or scrutiny, or what's changed since COVID for you?
Well, I guess for my day to day, not going into an office anymore. I would travel quite a bit. A lot of my clients aren't necessarily local, so not a lot of travel, and not even yet anymore. But it does make it a little bit more difficult for connections. And relationships are really important, regardless of your career, but especially in consulting, relationships are very important. And even internal relationships within my own company, making sure that you're making time virtually to connect with coworkers because you don't pass them in the hall anymore. So that has changed quite a bit for just our work lifestyle balance, and then just making sure still to turn off, the work at a certain point, and it will be there the next day. So I think even though we're not past COVID, I think we've all kind of learned what works. And our company just came out with a nice little motto that I like, where it's like, plan for your work, work for your day. So that basically means we're going to continue probably on this little bit of a hybrid path going forward. So if you need to get stuff done in your day, but you plan around your work for that, you can do that. So I think that has been one benefit from COVID.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. But and I agree with you, and I think it is nice to be the flexibility of like working from home. You're a parent, I'm a parent, right? Like you get to see people and see kids more and be more available. All good things, but I hear you about the connection with people, internally in your own organization. And I think one of the things that I remember thinking a lot about or learning a lot about when I was a college athlete is this idea of like watching some of your like upperclassmen, or watching people that were ahead of you in some way, and learning about like field presence, right? And I played football, so it was like learning how people kind of carry themselves, how do they interact, how do they manage different situations, how do they manage ups and downs. And I think some of that observation that used to be able to take place in an office, just in terms of like, what does executive presence look like, right? Like, how do people interact with each other? Those are some of the things that are not as available now, which is troubling in a sense. And I don't know that we're in a place yet where where we know the impact that will have, but it'll be interesting. So yeah, I completely agree with that. So yeah, okay. So went to pharmacy school, became a pharmacist, and now doing the consultant gig. What was your first role out of school? And I'm assuming pharmacist, but how did you get there? How did you make that decision? What drove that path?
Yeah. So yes, pharmacist out of school, but potentially, if you're not a pharmacist, right, how that can relate. I joined Target right out of school. So I was in a retail setting. I worked with people from all different backgrounds, of college backgrounds, right? And there's a lot of what Target calls execs within the store that you would work with again, different backgrounds. So for me, it was a huge learning curve. I was a pharmacist manager right out of the bat. So I thought, I'd played sports in college. I had, captained the sport. I kind of felt like, I had this leadership quality within me. But I think looking back, had I had a different path, or could I have, to your point, kind of watched somebody else manage for a while, had that mentorship strongly in place prior to managing. I felt like I kind of just learned as I went, which is one way to do it. If I could go back, it'd probably be nice to have had a leader or a mentor kind of guide me for the first maybe year or two before jumping into that role. But nevertheless, I did that, and I did that for about 7 years. So I stuck with it. I felt like I got to a good place, and I learned a lot about managing people. That was kind of the biggest takeaway, not just the pharmacist stuff, but really just, again, how to lead people, how to interact with different people from different backgrounds, especially as a pharmacist, being an empathetic listener. So there were a lot of skills that I took from that first job, that even if it felt like, again, like I'm learning as I'm going, I don't totally feel confident, don't totally feel comfortable. I learned from that, and I was out of my comfort zone in a few different ways. But it definitely helped me to take the next step in my career path, for sure. And I think also learning from that was like, when is the time maybe that this isn't totally where I want to go for the rest of my life? How do I start to think about what's next for me?